big story of the day, of course, is crude showing a downward slide after several days of firming up, of course, because of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. But today, Brent is down nearly 6% as we speak. It went down as much as 7-8% earlier in the day. So the key reason behind this is a two-stage lockdown which has been put into place in Shanghai because of a spike in COVID-19 cases. And China is one of the largest consumers of crude in the world. So the concern among crude dealers or traders is that there will be a lack of demand. What truly are the implications for crude prices? Will they continue in this direction or not? And what about the India impact? I spoke with Azlin Ahmad of Argus Media about this a little earlier this evening. Take a look at that conversation. Azlin, thank you so much for speaking with us here at ET Now. Let me begin by just asking you about the current factor, the first trigger, which is essentially the lockdown, the two-stage lockdown in Shanghai. How big of concern is that?
Well, I think that was a main factor that led to the drop in oil prices. At the end of last week, I think there was some hopes maybe that they wouldn't have a total lockdown. But the news came out, I think, over the weekend or early this morning, that half of the city, Shanghai, will be shut for 4 days from today, and then the other half will be shut from the 1st to the 5th of April. Now, the thing is that it's public transport, no private cars driving, so it's going to have a huge, it will have a significant impact in the demand for fuels in China. And so I think that was a big factor that pushed prices lower from Friday into today. So that was the trigger, the main trigger that pushed prices lower.
Do you expect that concern to sort of continue and keep depressing crude oil rates? Because there are so many opposing factors, right? On the one hand, you have this new trigger with China and the spread of COVID-19, the issue that there'll be a lack of demand in the largest consumer. But on the other hand, you have no end in sight to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. You have Russia's demand that, if you want to buy from us, buy in rubles. The European Union saying we won't. So will that sort of balance it out?
Yes, you're totally right. I mean, in a way, yes. Okay, the thing is that I think that in the very short term, and when I say short term, I think in the next few days, I think that we're going to see prices roughly where they are, assuming that there are no headline news or there's nothing that Russia will say that will trigger another bullish sentiment. I think that where the market right now, it's fallen because of the fears that there will be some contraction in oil demand in China because of this Shanghai lockdowns. I think that over the next few days, we may see the market is also to some extent watching the talks in Turkey between Russia and Ukraine that may start tomorrow, just to see how that progresses, to see whether there is any, hope for a ceasefire, for withdrawal. So that is another thing. I think that the news, anything that comes out from those talks could trigger either a fall or a rise. I mean, basically the market still remains very tight. And as we go into April, there is that risk or the fear that Russia crude production is going to fall because, as you know, a lot of companies have pulled away from buying Russian crude, which means that they have lesser buyers for the crude oil that they need to export. And the IEA has already said that this could impact Russia's crude production as early as April. So I think that we have to be very careful as we go into April, just to watch and see whether that lower production or rather lower exports of crude from Russia, how much of a reality that will be and how drastic it will be, because I think that will be also another impact. The way things are going right now, there's more room probably for crude oil prices to go higher rather than lower. It's just that there are more bullish factors that I can see in the near future rather than bearish factors. And the bearish factors will be more in the mid to longer term.
Now, brace for crude prices going higher. Today has been, in a sense, a short reprieve from the Indian perspective. Azlin, if I can just, add in one question from the Indian perspective, because we're beginning to see the heat on ground level where retail prices of petrol and diesel, of course, have been increasing. 6 hikes in the last 7 days, already 4 rupees, might increase more. Is there any sort of relief here for India, which has not shut the doors on importing Russian crude, probably at lower prices? What do you think the strategy will be or should be going forward?
Well, I think at this point, for India, I guess, because India is such a big importer of crude, and right now, almost all crude prices, including Middle East crude and Western European crude, the prices are very strong. So I guess on an economic basis, it's not surprising that Indian refiners are keen to take Russian crude because they are probably the cheapest grades that are on the market. So as of now, if there are no sanctions on Russian energy exports, and Indian refiners can sort out the payment with the Russian sellers, I would think that there would be limited hurdles for Indian refiners to continue to buy. The only thing that I can see right now that could pose a little bit of an issue is the vessels, the shipping, because more and more ship owners, and again, this is also self-sanctioned rather than any official sanctions. But we do see that many ship owners are getting more reluctant to go into Russian waters, to go to Russian ports because of, I guess, just concerns that they may be caught if there are more sanctions later on, or they might have payment problems. So I'm not sure how that will pan out. I think that is one thing that needs to be in focus, because you don't want to buy a cargo of crude and then discover that you cannot pick it up.
There's no one to ship it.
Problems.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. It's a complex.
Yes, something that needs to be watched. But other than that, I don't see that they've got any major hurdles.
Yeah.
And I understand that the Indian government is not preventing any of the Indian refiners from buying Russian crude. So economically, it's good. It's a good buy because the Russian crude is very cheap.
It's very cheap right now, absolutely. Thank you so much, Azlin, for joining us and putting in perspective what is happening with crude, as always.